Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got a follow up video here for you in regards to my video from this morning. If you saw, I put out another video talking about the Slovakian Prime Minister, okay, Robert Fico. He came out just yesterday, I believe, and he was giving some information to the public, basically stating that many different European countries and NATO members, potential NATO members, could possibly be contemplating on sending troops to Ukraine, actual NATO troops to Ukraine to help Ukraine fight this war against Russia. Okay, and I'm sure some of you are probably seeing that video and thinking, well, that's just a bunch of fear mongering and that's not something real that could happen. Well, now we've got this information coming out. Okay, there was like a large meeting between 20 different European countries, big heads of state and government from each of these countries that got together, and they were discussing this war in Ukraine. And here's French President Emmanuel Macron on your screen. So he was speaking at this meeting, and basically what he said there is that France would be considering sending troops on the ground in Ukraine, and he said that it would not be ruled out. They would not rule out sending Western troops to Ukraine. Okay, so that's why I say this is a follow up video to my video from this morning, because that prime minister from Slovakia was saying that there was some countries in Europe and potential NATO members, and obviously France is a NATO member. Some of these countries were planning on sending troops to Ukraine, and then boom, here we go. Now this information is coming out. So, as far as I know, this is the only country, only Emmanuel Macron is the only person there at that meeting that was actually contemplating sending troops. Okay, I'm going to be showing you something here in just a moment, too, that there's the French foreign minister is basically repeating the same rhetoric. Okay, and then we also have some information coming out from the Kremlin that's warning of conflict if any troops were to be on the ground in Ukraine. So I wonder if this is because the fact that Emmanuel Macron is willing to send troops to Ukraine is because I remember there was a report just not too long ago, and I may be wrong. If I'm wrong on this, let me know. But I want to say there was a report just in the last few months or so, 3 months, something like that, where Russia was accusing France of having French mercenaries on the ground in Ukraine. Apparently, they hit like a building and killed a bunch of French mercenaries. And then Macron came out and said something like, we're allowed to have troops down there or something like that. And I don't think they were actually fighting against Russia, but they were doing something there. And yeah, Russia was accusing them of having troops fighting against the Russian military. So I don't know if that's why maybe Macron is so eager and willing to do that because he's already been kind of involved in a way. I'm not sure. But I've got an article here that we're going to be discussing, actually, a few articles. But let's start with this one. The Associated Press is saying that putting Western troops on the ground in Ukraine is not ruled out in the future, French leader says. French President Emmanuel Macron said Monday that sending Western troops on the ground in Ukraine is not ruled out in the future after the issue was debated at a gathering of European leaders in Paris as Russia's full scale invasion grinds into a third year. So apparently there was a lot of pushback as well, real quick, with these other European leaders. Even Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, came out and he was like, "No, we're not sending any troops to Ukraine." So many countries, Germany came out, Poland, many countries were just disagreeing right away and trying to push back on, the French president, telling him, "No, we're not going to be sending any troops to Ukraine." But he is like dead set that he's willing to do so if need be. So the French leader said that we will do everything needed so Russia cannot win the war after the meeting of over 20 European heads of state and government and other Western officials. So look at this. I talk about this a lot too, that this war is so important, okay, and the West doesn't want to lose this war. Look at what he said. We will do everything needed so Russia cannot win the war. Everything needed. Okay, so clearly they are willing, at least he's willing to send French troops on the ground in Ukraine. Think about that. If you live in France right now, or you have any family that lives in France, this French leader is willing to do that. Okay? There's no consensus today to send in an official endorsed manner troops on the ground. But in terms of dynamics, nothing can be ruled out. Macron said in a news conference at the Elysee presidential palace, Macron declined to provide details about which nations were considering sending troops, saying he prefers to maintain some strategic ambiguity. So apparently there could be other countries that are willing to do so as well. So this Slovakian prime minister was not lying, apparently then. He was telling the truth, that there were countries that literally were ready to do this. And this is why I'm saying, I've been telling all of you, this war in Ukraine is going very badly. It's going so much more worse right now than what we're being told. Ukraine is completely collapsing and falling apart right now, and it's a matter of time before they fall, and it could happen in the very near term. We had Zelensky coming out and warning the West and saying we need supplies within 1 month, literally within the next 30 days. If they don't get supplies and they don't get the funding they need, there's a very big possibility that Ukraine is going to fall here, okay? So I want to show you this too. This is on CNBC. Okay, it says French troops could take up non-combat or combat roles in Ukraine. Foreign minister says. So the foreign minister is saying they're willing to send troops too. French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné on Tuesday said French troops could take up non-combat roles rather than active battle in Ukraine. And you know that's how it always starts, right? Of course there'll be non-combat roles in the beginning. Then before you know it, they'll be on the ground fighting against Russians when the time comes. This is obviously just a cover to get troops on the ground to be prepared to fight against Russia when the time comes, when Ukraine continues to fall back, which they're already doing that. I'm going to be putting out a video here very soon as well. They're falling back again. Okay, Ukraine is out of ammo. They have nothing to support themselves. Nothing. They're falling back. The comments come after French President Emmanuel Macron indicated that Western leaders had discussed sending ground troops to Ukraine, which was quickly played down by allies. We must consider new actions to support Ukraine. These must respond to very specific needs. I am thinking in particular of mine clearance, cyber defense, the production of weapons on site on Ukrainian territory, he told lawmakers, Reuters reported. So see, this is the West's war. You know, this is NATO's war. This is Europe's war. This is not Ukraine's war. Ukraine may be fighting this, and yes, they're fighting for their country, but this just goes to show how involved the West really is here. And that's why I say follow the money. I always tell you guys that. Follow the money. See where the money is going. When there's, billions upon billions of dollars being dumped into this war, this is obviously a very major war, and many countries are struggling just to generate funding to even give to Ukraine. They're willing to give all their war stockpiles, all their money, everything just to keep Ukraine afloat here. This is clearly very important to the West. Some of its actions could require a presence on Ukrainian territory without crossing the threshold of fighting. Nothing should be ruled out. This was and still is a position today of the President of the Republic. So think about this too. Let's say they go ahead and put these troops on the ground in Ukraine. Let's say they've got 200 troops inside of a warehouse producing ammunition or whatever there might be, building tanks or something like that. Okay, providing intelligence. And then let's say Russia finds out that there's enemies, which they would be considered enemies and legitimate targets in a way, right? Because they're in a war zone. Let's say they target that building and, these troops happen to get killed by that, missile strike or something. How is France going to respond to that now? Because now their troops are being killed in Ukraine. So see, they can't, if they decide to go in, if they really decide to send these troops in, it's got to be all or nothing. It can't just be, we're just going in to, support and cyber defense and things like that. No, that's all just a cover for what's really coming. And what's really coming is NATO fighting Russia if Ukraine loses this war. And this has been warned so many times from many different defense ministers, prime ministers, presidents. Even Joe Biden came out and said that. Okay, this is a really big deal here, people, and we are very close to this potentially happening. So the Kremlin came out and warned of conflict with NATO if alliance troops fight in Ukraine. So this is what they said. The Kremlin warned on Tuesday that conflict between Russia and the US led NATO military alliance would be inevitable if European members of NATO sent troops to fight in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has triggered the worst crisis in Russia's relations with the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, and President Vladimir Putin has previously warned of the dangers of a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron opened the door on Monday to European nations sending troops to Ukraine, although he cautioned that there was no consensus at this stage. The very fact of discussing the possibility of sending certain contingents to Ukraine from NATO countries is a very important new element. Look at that. See? So they're aware of this now. The Kremlin's aware of this, and now they know, is basically warning Russia that NATO's willing to get involved here. Okay? Even though it's just France speaking about this, it's not NATO as a whole. They did open the door to this because France is a NATO member. Okay? So Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters when asked about Macron's remarks, asked by reporters about the risks if NATO members sent their troops to fight in Ukraine, Peskov said, in that case, we would need to talk not about the probability, but about the inevitability of a direct conflict. There you go again. So they are well aware that this is going to lead to a conflict, which is obvious, right? It will. But that was always a red flag for Russia, saying that, okay, if you're going to send weaponry to Ukraine, whatever. And then they were like, no long-range missiles. If you send long-range missiles, that's a red line in the sand. If you send F-16s, that's a red line in the sand. All these different things is exactly where we're at right now that the West is willing to do. They're talking right now about sending long-range missiles to Ukraine. F-16s are going to be coming to Ukraine here very soon. So this is what's going to happen. Russia is going to continue an offensive right now, and they're going to try to take as much land as they possibly can. And if they were smart, try to take Ukraine down now before they get all these long-range missiles, before they get the F-16s, before they get the ammunition and the aid package and all this extra equipment they're going to be getting. Okay, if they're smart, they'll do that. Peskov said that the West should ask themselves if such a scenario was in the interests of their countries and their peoples. I mean, look at this. Look at this, everybody. This is really dangerous here. And most people in America right now are just sitting back, watching movies, hanging out, chilling on social media, and not even realizing that we are the closest we've ever been to World War III and potential nuclear war. Like, it is just so close. It is dangerously and obviously noticeable. And if you pay attention to this, you can be aware that this is a real possibility here. That's why I tell everybody, if you're not following this channel, I highly recommend that you do, because I'm putting out daily updates to let you know that we are very, very close to a major world war, very, very close to nuclear war. Okay, this is really bad, and all these leaders are coming out and warning this, and I personally do not believe that this is just fear-mongering. I don't believe that. I do believe that there's a very big possibility they're going to get involved here, because I've been studying this for quite some time now. You can see the buildup and the rhetoric and what this is forming. This is forming a wide worldwide war, okay? An extreme war. So I hope you're ready for it. I hope you're heeding these warnings. And, if you do see these warnings, please try to do something. Please try to prepare in some way for it, because anything can happen here. And Ukraine is just dangerously close to losing this war pretty soon. And understand that if Ukraine loses this war, that means the West lost this war. And they are not going to be willing to go down without a fight. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you got something out of this, please hit the like button. And if you enjoy my content, again, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, I appreciate you being here again. I hope you all have an amazing day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.